Okay, so this is when, in my Halloween version, here in Taylor, Texas, not too far away, and I had just done the Woodbine Mansion, and I was asked by this paranormal group, this lady, if I would come with her to this man who had a haunted property. He was in the middle of nowhere, and him and his little son were scared to death. So we go out there, and he had two properties, kind of. He had his house that was being built on one part, and where we met him at was him and his son were living in this trailer. I mean, a small, tiny trailer, and that's where a lot of the stuff was happening. That's all I knew. And I had gotten out of the car, and immediately dragonflies were flying everywhere in this field, and we hadn't seen them forever. In fact, I said it, I noticed it, and the man even went, "Oh my God!" He was this big redneck-looking guy. He was Catholic. Didn't look like somebody who believed in any of this. So, and he looked scared to death. But he was going, "Yeah, I haven't seen any dragonflies around here." And I go, "Well, that's my calling card. That's one of my spirit guides." So I felt really good because I always do prayers and protection and things like that before I do anything like this. So me and this lady of this paranormal group walk up, and we decided, he kind of told us things were happening, and him and his little boy were scared. So we decided to go one at a time. So I went in first, and it was just big enough to walk in, a tiny kitchen, a bedroom on one side, and a little bedroom on the other side, like a camping trailer almost. And it was dark, and I went to the left immediately because that's where I was pulled, and I sensed a little boy spirit, but it wasn't. I can see through their masks. I can feel when they're not a human, and I knew this wasn't human. And he was trying to pretend to be this innocent little boy. I'm like, "I know what you are, and you need to leave." And he was like, "No." And I'm like, "Yeah, you have to go. You can't be doing this. You got to go." And he's like, "No, you can't make me." And we had this back and forth, and I went, "All right, all right." So I stepped down to the lady, the paranormal group psychic. She was psychic too. And the owner, who was like petrified, standing there in the field, which is so funny because we're tiny women and this guy's huge, and he was terrified. And so I stood with him. I didn't say anything of what I got, and I let Karen go because that was her name. I'm sorry. I let her go up there and her to check that out and see what she got. That way we can compare notes. So she goes up in there, and I was just talking, trying to calm the guy. I remember the guy telling me that at night that he would feel hands or something pushing up under the mattress, which was impossible, under his mattress, and it would torment him. Now, the reason he had contacted, and I guess he gave the woman the picture, I mean, he gave her a picture of what he caught, and when she showed it to me, you could definitely see a dark thing in the middle of the photograph. It was on his property. I think it was at that trailer. And he said this thing is around him all the time. And I saw this beautiful bright light next to it. And I knew immediately he was being protected by angels. Whatever this darkness was, he was being protected. And I told him that. I said, "I know this thing is tormenting you. It's trying to scare you. It's trying to do all these things because it's feeding off you and your son. And I'll do what I can to get rid of it." And so Karen came out, and we talked, and she got the same thing. And she was like, "I was telling it to go too." And and it wouldn't go. And I'm like, "Okay, well, we need to do that." So we both went into together. And I learned quickly it wasn't responding to Christian prayer and everything. So she was still doing her thing. And I thought, you know what? This could be Native American based. This could be something elemental, earthy, negative. And that's why. So I decided to call upon Native American and the spirits to help me, and nature to help me get rid of it. And it did disappear. So I knew it was responding to that. But while I was doing that, I got a whole bunch of Native Americans in my mind's eye. I mean, a whole bunch. I saw a whole bunch, and they were all talking to me at once. And I'm going, I can't hear everybody. I can't talk to so many spirits at one time. And I noticed that behind that, in my mind's eye, I saw like 4 or 5 white people, settlers. This was at least 100 years ago or more. But they weren't being talkative. They were just like quietly waiting behind the group of Native Americans, like, please talk to us too, you know. And so I asked the Native Americans to please pick someone to be the spokesman. And that's what they did. This older gentleman came forward and was talking to me, and they were telling me they were from his other property where his house was being built. They didn't know who he was. They didn't feel they were being respected. They were doing all this kind of stuff. And so I was telling the other lady I was with what I was getting, and I was trying to talk to them. And once that thing that was in the trailer left, at least for now, I said, why don't we go to the second location, because I think they want me to go there. And I had this need before I even arrived to bring one of my smudge sticks with. And I told her when the guy was driving us, I said, I'm going to give them an offering. I'm going to give them my smudge stick. I'm just going to leave it there. It was white sage and everything, and I'll leave it for him on the other property. So while we're driving, he's like, I want to bring my priest out. I want to have the house blessed. I want to do this. And she's like, no, you don't need to. We'll take care of this. We'll take it. And I'm like, no. You know what? More people of the light, more people of the higher vibration working is only a good thing. Why would you tell him no? So we had a little fight in the car a little bit. Didn't go well, but I was telling the guy, do what you want. If you want to bring out a priest, if you want to bring out anybody, holy water, it can't hurt. Why wouldn't you want more people helping than less people? So that was weird to me. So we get out to the second property, and it was being built, and I left an offering. I could see along this shrubbery, if you've ever been to Texas, it's a bunch of like cactuses and shrubs, and it's very hard to walk in, a lot of fire ants, and it had been plowed a lot to build the house, but he was surrounded in it, and I could see them all standing there they just came out and stood right there at where the trees and shrub began. So I was talking to them. This was a few years ago. This was after I moved here to Texas, so it had to have been at least 3 years ago. So I gave him an offering, and I was talking to him with that, and I was telling them to please, he doesn't mean any harm. He loves this land as much as you love this land, and he doesn't mean any harm, and he just needs you to please help him protect this land. And so I was doing all that, and I think they were understanding because they just didn't know. I guess I did hear from them that they were like he would hear when they were in the house, they would hear people running along the roof of the house, that nobody was there. The machines, bulldozers and things like that would just stop working. I mean, they were doing everything they could to sabotage it and chase him away, doing all kinds of, he was petrified. So we did all that, and I remember I went away not feeling the best. Oh, and before we drove away, I told him about the white settlers and if they were and everything, and he was like, "Oh yeah, there was a cemetery somewhere in the area that the neighbors, because it was out in ranch country, I guess at some point they had built a dirt road on top of this old cemetery. It was a family cemetery, and they had just built a road. They didn't dig anybody up. They just put a road over it." And I went out there, and part of the cemetery was still there, but it was falling apart and tombstones. And then he said the other half was under the road because it was right off this dirt road. And I went, that's the white people, the white spirits I was getting. And so I walked out there, and they were telling me, we just want to be remembered. Please tell them to erect something around the cemetery. Please put something up, and everything like that to remember us, keep us going. And I told him all that. So he said he would. He said they would build a better fence and make sure that the cemetery wasn't lost. They didn't know what to do about the ones that were actually buried under the road, but at least they knew. He was going to inform the neighbors and stuff. And I did, after I got home, I didn't feel like we did enough, even though I told them, please get a priest out and things like that, whatever you want to do. I didn't feel like whatever that dark thing was left. I feel like the Native Americans were appeased and they were fine. I don't think they really bothered them, but that darker thing wasn't. And I think he just left it left us because, but it was going to come back. And I remember I got my candles out, I got all this kind of stuff. I normally don't do all this, but I brought all my power out. And as I was lighting my candles and I had them there, and I was getting ready to do a thing against him, I was calling upon Jesus and angels and Archangel Michael and all that. The candles blew out in a bathroom with no wind. I knew it was trying to stop me. I'm like, no, I'm not going to stop. You're not stopping me that easy. This is more powerful than you. I'm not more powerful. Spirit is more powerful than you. So I relit them. I focused. I prayed. I got Jesus, and I saw this big thing happening between I want to say Jesus, but it could have been Archangel Michael. I don't remember. And they were fighting it out. And they were actually, it was a fight. And all I was doing was just trying to keep it going or watch it. But I was asking, please fight for this man, and please help this man. So I remember at the end of it, I felt it was vanquished. It was gone. It took a bit. I was drained. I was exhausted. I never did hear back. Around that time, we had a falling out, me and this paranormal group. So I don't know whatever happened to that man or his property. I never did find out, and I never wanted to contact them to ask. And I didn't have his contact information. So, yeah, that's that one. I would say one of my more concerning ones I've ever done. And I always wanted to know if I could help him or if he was helped or anything or a follow-up. So that's that one.